I would say my youngest patients tend to be, in their mid 20s, early 30s.
Mhm.
A lot of my slightly younger patients, again, it's just a lot of education. I for one, again, do not believe that a young man should not be able to have access to something like testosterone if they
Mhm.
need it. But you and I both know also there are young men who are not eating the way they should, are not sleeping the way they should, training the way they should. So, I do start conservatively. If there's a way in which we can, not necessarily prevent you from using testosterone, but push you in a position where you potentially don't need it, I'd rather go in that direction first. But again, a lot of my young men are born, I like to say, behind the eight ball in the sense that
Mhm.
they had no real shot at ever having normal hormone levels. So then it becomes a lot of education around, well, how can we maintain testicular function?
Mhm.
Would the addition of HCG be appropriate in this situation? If you can't afford HCG, could we consider testosterone and then potentially adding HCG in the
Mhm.
future? We talk about cryopreservation, as kind of a golden insurance policy around that sort of thing. And I'll tell you, my young men have just been so appreciative because again they have been kicked around by probably beginning with their pediatrician to then their primary care provider for so long. I think it just feels validating and rewarding to actually be able to speak about these things and not be embarrassed to ask
Mhm.
for testosterone like as if they're some sort of drug abusing bodybuilder or something crazy like that.
Mhm. And why do they come to your practice? Because they're already experiencing some low testosterone symptoms?
Yeah, the vast majority of them do.
Mhm.
And I think most of them, I'm very fortunate. Most of them are referrals from other young men who have been in similar positions. Similarly, I see a lot of females, and they, maybe they're in their mid 20s or early 30s,
Mhm.
and they're saying, "Gosh, Nico, I'm feeling so much better. My cycles are so much more regular. My libido is fantastic. My boyfriend, he's been on a Zoloft for 10 years and he's miserable. I'd be curious if you could help him." So it's a really nice, I love seeing both sexes for that reason because we get a lot of referrals that way, which is great.
All right. So, why do women come to your practice? Are they also experiencing some hormone-related symptoms?
Absolutely. I think females probably just certainly beat us in terms of feeling worse than we do. And I think a big position or a big part of that is probably because of that estrogen disrupting, endocrine disrupting chemicals, the estrogen mimicking hormones. Women, young women especially, produce tremendous amounts of estrogen. Most of them do. Uh, that's the game, is they produce a ton of estrogen, and they turn into these beautiful young women, and then they start producing a ton of progesterone, and it should flip back and forth essentially throughout the cycle. And I kind of think of it almost as probably they're experiencing a stacking effect, where now they're around constantly these xenoestrogens, these fake estrogens, and that's on top of their already quite high estrogen loads that they're producing, and that's slowly also pushing down their progesterone. And all the typical female problems that exist are all, generally speaking, low progesterone problems and high estrogen problems. So we think, from the most severe PCOS or polycystic ovarian syndrome, endometriosis, certain types of mental health issues, especially like premenstrual dysphoric disorder. These are, if you're looking at the data, these are all sharply on the rise.
Mhm.
And all of them, at least from my understanding, looking at the research, really have estrogenic components. Estrogen is, and this isn't to bash estrogen and estradiol, especially. It's a fantastic hormone if it's in balance and in a good relationship. But once estrogen gets a little bit too dominant, so to speak, we start seeing estrogenics very excitatory in the nervous system, so much so that it can push these poor women into a psychosis of sorts, which is like a premenstrual dysphoric disorder. It's very frightening, and they can feel suicidal, sometimes homicidal, even just for this short window of time when they just have so much estrogen going. And then, on the other side of things, estrogen is extremely good at growing things. It's a primordial substance to help things grow. And so if you think of endometriosis and polycystic ovaries, a lot of those are just, again, so much estrogen, such little progesterone. progesterone being the stop gap, the yin to the yang. Progesterone is saying, that's enough, that's plenty, relax, calm down. And so again, when I see women in my clinic, it's primarily for those problems. And obviously, we could get into fertility and cycles and all those sorts of things. It's so rampant right now. I mean, my young girls here in the United States, I think 9 or 10 is the average age for menstruation right now, which is incredibly young, incredibly young.
Yeah, same here. So the first thing you get young women on, if they are symptomatical, maybe bad night sleeping, sweaty at night, is progesterone.
Absolutely. I always tell women progesterone is what is to women what testosterone is to men in a lot of ways. I think progesterone is truly the female hormone, and especially for those younger women who are miserable. So many men, I think, are in a good position in terms of understanding that testosterone is so vital. I think women are still in a position where they're seeing hormone replacement therapy as something they do when they're older, when they go through perimenopause and menopause, where it's actually, no, it's the same. We're in the same boat. And so progesterone and thyroid by far are probably the most common, but testosterone as well. I do treat a lot of women, young women, with testosterone. We just have to be careful if they're, wanting to get pregnant, because it can be, harmful to the fetus potentially.